What is going on? I'm Malachi Grubb, CEO of Elite Automation, Elite Properties, and an investor in Tesla. So I wanted to make this video today because somebody actually made a comment. And first of all, that asshole. And basically the comment was something like, basically I give that intro of like some of the things that we do and whatnot. And it's like, their comment was something like, of a 2-person company. Well, I want to give a breakdown for our current followers of the channel and also new followers of the channel to give you guys actually an understanding of how our businesses are kind of structured and the reason why I have certain business structures in the way that I do. First of all, I'd like to start off by saying, I'm going to engage FSD, but that wasn't what I was going to say. I'm in the Cybertruck today. But first of all, the first actual thing is I really don't care what this dude thinks. I'm not one of those type of peoples that cares about people's opinions, right? I want to make the people around me that I love and friends and I want to be respected in the industry and stuff like that, or the industries that I work in. But outside of that, and even if people don't respect me, I don't care because I'm gonna win anyway. Right? You have to have that mentality because there's just like some people you can't work with, there's haters, and the more you do, the more haters and stuff will come. So I just want to get that out of the way, especially for anybody who's starting to get involved in businesses and trying to do things. There'll be so many people that either tell you can't do it or just try to dog on you for like, whatever reasons. Like for example, this person here that's trying to say something about, being a 2-person businesses. Well, this is probably coming from somebody that's sitting on their grandma's couch that doesn't operate any businesses at all. Whether it's 1 man, 2 man, 6 man, 1,000 man company, right? So I have particular reasons why, my companies are broke down the way that they are. And I'll kind of give you some of the reasons why, and I will give you really just a full breakdown of the businesses as deep as I kind of want to. And so I'll first of all start by saying Elite Automation was my first like legalized business. And Elite Automation is an automation company that builds automated equipment for manufacturing facilities. So robotics and conveyors and, servo drives. I don't want to get too deep in that, but basically manufacturing processes and automating manufacturing processes. That's what that company does. Now, that's also what I spent a big majority of my career doing. I spent, 10 years working for what's called a systems integrator, which is basically what we are. And doing a lot of stuff in vision and robotics. And so my skill sets are actually electrical engineer, PLC programmer, robot programmer, safety and risk analysis engineer. And so like that's a lot of my technical background prior to like getting into like more project management and then the management of like multiple projects and stuff like that prior to starting Elite Automation and becoming CEO of Elite Automation. And so to give like more context on that, like Elite Automation is basically my baby, right? That's like the business that I care most about. It's our biggest company. And I actually don't talk about it that much. So Elite Automation, we have over 50-something employees, and we have employees in over 6 different countries that are fully employed by Elite Automation under our payroll every week. And we have a very unique business model. There's like no other company in our industry that's working in the way that we're working. We have, I was in a meeting yesterday with somebody from Mexico, somebody from India, and somebody from the United States in one singular meeting. And that's a day-to-day occurrence. That's not anything that's a rare occurrence for our company. It isn't like we operate in a way where, this is the European division, this is the United States division or North American division. We just don't operate in that way. We're like one cohesive team, and people are assigned to a project based on certain metrics. Like, if maybe visaing is required, so that might be one thing that limits some of our regional stuff, because it depends on like where we're executing the work at. Well, like will we be executing the work in the United States? Will we be executing the work in Mexico? And then so the visa processing is different for all those different countries. So basically who gets assigned to the project, especially for like installation side of things, a lot of times might be based on things like visa. But the first of all thing where people are, planned to go to different projects is really skill set, right? What type of platforms are we working on, and who's the best fit for that project, right? Has somebody done this type of system before? Is it similar to another system that they've done? These different types of things, right? And then also every system's different. Maybe this system has, 5 robots, 1 PLC, and you have this other system that has 5 PLCs, 1 robot. Now, that might be going over a lot of people's head, and I'm really not trying to get into like the whole dynamic of the way that business operates, but Elite Automation is basically a full-fledged, I'll say, corporate company that is, again, executing work for big companies like Lucid and like Ford, and so that's just a few big names that we've executed work for. And so that's just that business. It's a big corporate business doing work for other big corporate companies. And now they kind of take me into some of the other companies. So one of the I'll just list off the companies. So we have Elite Properties. We also have Elite Automotive, and then also the like investing in Tesla thing. So I just kind of want to cover all those. Elite Properties. So I've actually been in real estate longer than I've started Elite Automation. But whenever I originally started Elite Properties, I didn't really legalize it as Elite Properties. I was basically just having rental properties under my personal name. And then like I think it was 3 years ago, we started converting everything over to Elite Properties. We started buying properties in Elite Properties names. We started doing like Burr method, like houses, aka meaning we buy houses, we renovate them, and then we rent them out and refinance them. That's like one of our key strategies for like procurement of properties and scaling and whatnot. So this company has really kind of just has been like a trickling start. And there's a couple things for those reasons. And first of all, I want Elite Properties, and this actually goes for Elite Properties, Elite Automotive, I guess that's it. That goes for both those companies. Is I really don't want any overhead. I don't want any employment costs. I want to keep the costs as minimal as possible. I want them to be like pure profit machines with no, how do you call it? I don't want to say HR liability because it's not really like what I want to say, but basically HR, liabilities. Like I don't want to have to worry about hiring people, firing people. So like with that being said, like the way that Elite Properties operates is we're either operating through contractors. I'll put in my own sweat equity in evening times. Jenna will also put in sweat equity in evening times. We get our kids involved, which is something we really love to do. It's just like a cool experience that, my kids can do more than like half the 18-year-olds. And so like this is, as a father, this is like something that I'm just very proud of, and I can't really trade it for anything. And so therefore, like if I'm there putting in my sweat equity whenever I have some free time, then, and my kids also being able to experience that value that I'm getting from that alone, is worth more than I'll ever make on any of the properties. Another thing that we also just have like individuals, right? We have a handful of 5-6 individuals where we can just hit them up and say, hey, we have this wall that needs ripped out. Hey, we need this, whatever done, right? And they're kind of like more handyman type of things. And they also will essentially kind of work directly for Elite Automation as contractors, but not like full contractor companies. So we have full contractor companies where maybe it's, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, especially anything that needs like permitting and stuff like that. We'll contract out some of that stuff so that way like they can just handle permitting and whatnot, and like we don't have to really also worry about that liability as much. But like the things that really don't need permitting, then we'll just have like more like handyman type of individuals and do some of that work. Again, a lot of that's like ripping out walls, it's laying floors, it's all these things, right? And my number one goal and focus for Elite Properties is actually it's generation of wealth, right? I care about Elite Properties making making us wealthy, basically, and also cash flow, right? Because it's such a simple business and it's very predictive, which I'll get into all that as well. First of all, it'll build long-term wealth because as we hold properties, they'll build equity over time due to the payoff, due to appreciation. There's a lot of things about real estate that I really like. And I'll actually get into that in a little bit in the automotive side and why I don't like that business. But, so like cash flow and equity. So, that's how the equity is going to be built, is just over time, paying down properties and the houses appreciating in value over time. And then cash flow. So then now we're also gaining positive cash flow, and it's very predictable on how much cash flow we'll gain. We spend this much money, this is what our rent roll is going to be, and it's easy math, right? And so therefore it gives us a positive cash flow that's very consistent, and we have our averages, we have our minimums, and we know pretty much exactly what we're going to make month over month, year over year. And that's one of the big reasons for elite properties, is because it's so predictable. Like calculating out growth is like, it's child's play in a sense, which I understand that can be very complicated if you have not been involved in it at all. But if I compare it to like elite automation is so freaking complex. It's so unpredictable. We don't know if we're going to do $3 million this year and $1 million next year. And, luckily, that company has consistently grown. Like we went from like $60,000 to $200,000 to like $1 million to like, $5 million in revenues. And so like that company has been growing. However, it's also very unpredictable. We go like months at a time, not knowing like where the next project is coming from. And it's just not predictable. And it also doesn't really stack up very cleanly. And when I say it doesn't stack up very cleanly, to give you two comparisons, is like if we buy another property, we buy another property, we buy another property, that keeps stacking up. We keep building wealth vehicles, we keep building wealth generation vehicles, and cash flow vehicles. But however, I'll give you a prime example on the automation side. We just lost a big customer this past year due to basically we got into conflict with payment. They were essentially holding payment for a process they already signed off on, and we're going to lose basically $1 million a year not having that customer. And so that immediately kind of takes a chunk out of our projections for the next year. And so if that happens consistently with losing of customers and things like that, then things can be very choppy. You can have up and down years, and you can have that in the property side. You'll have ups and downs, but you're still going to have the consistency. You're still going to cash flow positive. You're still going to, it's all still very predictable. Whereas on the automation side, it's not very predictable. There's things when we go through slow periods, we had to lay people off, and I don't know if you've ever had to do anything like that, but it's a very hard thing to go through. It's very stressful. You lose a lot of sleep at night. And it's not something that I want to do. I started Elite Automation and wanted it to be a place for people to have the best working opportunity they can ever have in their lives. Because I came from a place where I didn't have much opportunity. I made $5 an hour under industry standard the entire 10 years I worked for my previous company. And I could have left and made $5 an hour more, but I knew that I was working at a small enough company and I could have my hands in enough things, and I was gaining experiences that I would not be able to gain any other place. How I laid out in the very beginning of this video, all the different skill sets that I have, those all came because I said, I'll do that, I'll take on that task, right? And so it slowly just put me in different areas of focus so that I was able to obtain those new skills. And if I didn't take that sacrifice, that I wouldn't have been able to do that. But point being is, when starting Elite Automation, I wanted to be a place where people could learn. I wanted it to be a place where people can make more money than ever, maybe have more vacation time than ever. And one thing I'm really proud to say that we have actually been able to accomplish is, when it comes to vacation, we have basically kind of a strategy where we basically people are salaried, and then we accrue vacation time for them. So like we was on site for like 6 months on a project, and one of our employees occurred like 3 months of vacation time. And so like we got done with the project, they just went on vacation for like 3 months, didn't see him for 3 months, and you can't get that anywhere else, right? Like it's just like unheard of being able to get 3 months of vacation at an employer, right? Most people are like happy to get 3 weeks of employment, and that's like the best they're gonna get. And I think that's just ridiculous that we're working our lives away. You know, I think that everybody should get like 3 months off a year. And yet I work 365 days a year. But whatever, I'll take that sacrifice for everybody. Okay, so going back into like, you know, comparing Elite Automation, I kind of want to conclude that and conclude the properties and stuff like that. We have, you know, Elite Automation again that's very complex, and you have Elite Properties that is like very straightforward. Also, with the complexity of Elite Automation, the employees is complicated, right? Meaning we have to have PLC controls engineers, we have to have robot programmers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, all of these engineering facets, right? And like you may not know anything about this you know industry, but like say for instance a robot engineer, you have different brands of robot, the same that you have like a Chevy, a Ford, a Toyota, right? And not every robot engineer can work on a different platform. AKA, like that's like the equivalent of having a mechanic that can like one mechanic can work on Toyotas only, one mechanic can only work on a Ford only. It's like that in this industry where you have your robot programmers that are only capable of working on a singular platform, or they can only work on a couple platforms, and like, you know, and then you have extremely good engineers that are able to work on like pretty much every platform. Maybe not that great, but like they can figure it out and get through it and all that good stuff. But again, that creates operational challenges, and that also creates not just operational challenges, but not even executional challenges, because it does that as well. But it like planning and financial strategy problems, meaning I can't just hire somebody with like Mitsubishi PLC programming experience and Mitsubishi like robot experience, right? And just keep them on payroll, or just hire them because we have one project with a Mitsubishi PLC or Mitsubishi robot, right? And that's just like kind of give an example. And so now like, you know, we either have to contract that in. We have to worry about how we're going to execute that, right? I don't want to get too deep into it, but I just want to really point out like the complexities that are in this business versus like some of the other businesses. So again, we have like this company over here, Elite Automation, with 50 plus employees. We have Elite Properties with like pretty much just me and Jenna, and then depends on the timing. Sometimes we have like 1 to 2 employees to like for like maintenance and like but like we kind of lay those people off, or they kind of like just quit, and then we just like don't worry about hiring somebody else for some period of time, or you know, we wait some 3, 4, 5, 6 months until we have like another project that we're working on, aka like a new property or something. And so like that's kind of how the ebbs and flows of that business works. You know, obviously like anytime we're having like any issues with like HVAC and stuff like that, we're contracting like full contractors come out and handle those things. Plumbing, you know, like we have a property that has like a sewage backup going on, so I think we're gonna have to redo like the whole drain line all the way out to the street. So we'll debate if we contract out that full thing or if we do part of it and then let like, you know, an actual contractor come in and finish it out. We'll see how that goes. That's one of the things that's up in the air. But you know, also like if we're buying a new property, one property that we have our eyes on, or contracted actually, but it doesn't have HVAC, so like we got to get, you know, contractors over there to look at and quote at adding HVAC to the property. So yeah, that's kind of like some of the dynamics and some of like the daily operations. You know, also for like cleaners and stuff like that, like depending on what we have going on, you know, sometimes Jenna cleans properties, sometimes we outsource it to, you know, outside cleaning services. Sometimes we also kind of hire people for some period of time, especially like if, if we're going to be out of town. But I'll be honest, like we've struggled like with cleaners. Either like the cleaning individuals are like too expensive, or they don't do a good job. So it's like they're either charging a lot or they just suck at their job. So that's kind of like an experience that we've kind of, you know, witnessed with it. But and also too, like some of the things, like for us, if like you don't have a cleaner internally, then it messes with your profit margins. A lot of like things like rentals and stuff like that. Like so many people use property management services, and that's just, you know, they just own the asset and they don't manage anything of it. But I don't like leaving that much upside on the table. I'd rather manage the properties ourselves. I just don't. To me, it's not complicated enough to outsource that. Like, yeah, I don't know. And maybe at some point in time I will, you know, have a management company and I will do that. But like as of right now, like we're just not at scale enough. And also I anticipate building out a team, but I want to build a team extremely efficiency. I want Elite Properties to be extremely efficient. Whereas like Elite Automation, I don't mind taking big bets. Like for example, you know, for Elite Automation, we spent like, I don't know, probably over $20,000 in ads last year. I mean, probably way more than that. I don't know what the number is. I don't really manage that side of things too much, but we don't mind, you know, spending that much money. We probably spent $10,000-$20,000 in like wraps for vehicles and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, like these are all you know, bets that we're playing on like Elite Automation, because again, Elite Automation is the baby. Elite Automation, its potential for growth is there. Oh, I just re-engaged, so I didn't want to do that. I'm at destination. So yeah. So actually, I want to go ahead and like flip over real quick to like revenue generation, profitability, and kind of, you know, point those things out. So Elite Automation has the ability to have by far the quickest growth out of all the things. And pretty much any business has the ability to grow faster than any other thing, because they're basically cash flow generating machines. And that's the big upside. The downside is they're generally very unpredictable. They're, you know, there's lots of ups and downs. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just basically how it is. But, you know, Elite Automation is something that, like, within 5 years can be doing $10 million in business. You know, I mean, if like the stars aligned in 5 years, it's not even far-fetched for Elite Automation to do $20 million in business. It's not far-fetched for, you know, Elite Automation to do $100 million in business in like less than 10 years, you know. And definitely within like 20 years, Elite Automation will be doing $1 billion in business, right, per year. And so that is the how do I say it? Basically kind of like the financial projection and the outlook of Elite Properties and its potential to earn income. Also, Elite Properties is the only company that I actually take a W-2 from. And then I essentially, just to keep it like transparent with you guys, I pretty much take my W-2 money, cover a little bit of my bills, like not much, and then invest it in the stock market. And I do that basically as like a diversification. Also, I need to show income for some of the other things that I'm doing for like the properties and stuff like that, if you want to go buy a vehicle and all that good stuff. But basically, I try to take as little out of Elite Automation as possible, because I want Elite Automation to sustain itself, or not to sustain itself. I want it to have the max potential for growth. So like, I'm really not the type of person that I really want to take, like, I don't ever really want to take $200,000 from Elite Automation until, like, in my opinion, we've made it, right? And you know, I honestly, the amount of salary that I take from Elite Automation is less than I would make as an engineer, right? Because I literally, I could go be an engineer working at like pretty much any big company. Like small companies might pay like shit, but I could go to any big company and make, you know, I'll say more than what I'm making at Elite Automation. But again, I do that because I want Elite Automation to keep the money. I want Elite Automation to have the best potential for success possible, and I don't want anything to interrupt that. So, with that being said, that's how I strategize that. And then I do take like some of my the money that I do earn, and I put it in the stock market. So like all my money I pretty much invested. I don't spend much money on like a personal level for things. Like if I do, like this year I spent the most money on anything, and I bought the Cybertruck, and I bought the Model Y, and we also bought a Lincoln Navigator L, and we bought a Expedition. But that also kind of takes me into like the Elite Automotive and like basically vehicle rental business, which again, I don't really love it. And part of the reason why we bought so many vehicles is because we were trying to build out more of a fleet. I've wanted Teslas for years, 10 years. And I just haven't done it. I hadn't pulled the trigger. I was like, I can't stand spending money on vehicles, because like a vehicle is one of the worst like things you can do with your money, because you're just gonna throw it all away. You lose so much in depreciation as soon as you take it off the lot. And then on top of that, like if you have a loan that's not 0% interest, then you're gonna pay even more than you bought the vehicle for anyway. So like this Cybertruck, I'll tell you how terrible of an example this is. Well, how perfect of an example it is, how terrible of a financial decision it was. This thing was like $120,000. After the loan's all said and done, I'm going to pay $200,000 for this truck. Which is mind-blowing. Worst financial decision ever. But hey, I get to, make videos in the Cybertruck and, do reviews and stuff like that. And also, too, which this takes me into one of the other reasons why I bought Teslas, is because I felt like we were finally at a point where FSD was getting very, very, very close for, like, robotaxi. And FSD becoming unsupervised. And so I wanted firsthand experience. So both the Teslas that I bought FSD on them. And so I wanted to be able to test FSD, how well FSD is working, and be able to judge my investment in Tesla. Now, don't get me wrong, I invest in other things outside of Tesla. It's just like kind of one of the hot topics, and it's also one of my biggest investments, so that's why I talk on it so much. And I also do the most research on Tesla, just to kind of get a gauge of where they're at, where they're going, vehicle production, FSD, robotaxi, where all these things are at. So this gives me firsthand experience as an investor to then be able to test these systems, be able to experience the vehicle, and give like my pros and cons, on the vehicle, and kind of understand, like as a user of the vehicle, where people's mindsets might be at, where the technology's at, all that good stuff. But for the same reasons that I was telling you about, like depreciation of the vehicle, if you don't have 0% interest, that's the reason why like the automotive business is not something that's really good at all, and we're kind of killing it off. One of our vehicles is actually at a repair shop because it's pretty much totaled, and yeah, so we actually sold one of the vehicles because it got delisted from Turo, which is a whole nother reason why it's just like too much of a liability. Like I just have to advise people like almost not do it, because it's just too much liability. You lose money on the initial asset. If you're going to do it, you have to do it in a specific vehicle range where you're getting vehicles for like $5,000 to $15,000, and you're basically paying cash, so that way you're not losing any other money on the on the loan side of things, which like creates an issue with scalability, because yeah, I mean, it'll help you with cash flow positive. And so like that's one thing that's nice about it, is like if you just go buy a car cash, but then like you're not gonna get the good rental rates because your vehicle's less, I don't know, I don't like it. Again, like if you buy in that category, then you could probably do well. And we're still testing it, right? And we're honestly just testing it as business owners, as entrepreneurs. Honestly, I'm done with the business. I don't care about it. I could give a shit less what happens tomorrow about it. it's not worth my time and energy. And sometimes I do things that are just not worth my time and energy. And this is that exact case, is like, but I like the experience of it, right? I like to, like, this gives me like something that I can tweak, and I can say, okay, well, let's try to buy a vehicle cash and put it on there, which we haven't done yet, but that might happen. However, I haven't, and I don't know if I will, because I'm too worried about keeping money in AI companies and companies like Tesla in the stock market, and me taking that money out is almost not worth me taking that money out. Like, my best financial decision is to keep that money in. And even buying properties, some of the property money that we're using, down payments and stuff like that, is stock investments. So I do this wish wash method, which I guess I can point that one out real quick. A lot of what I do is wish wash method, meaning I take my property investments, anything I cash out, I put it in stocks. I take any of my stock investments and I put it in properties, right? And I'm wish washing them to back and forth quite a bit. And sometimes I'll do kind of the same with automotive as well. But most of the time that's taking money out of the stock market and putting in automotive, which is part of why I don't like it. But also too, like, we're driving a Cybertruck, we're driving a brand new Model Y, and so even though, like, it's at a loss or whatever, we're also getting some personal use out of the vehicles, so it's like not that big of a deal. Yeah, so like that's one thing whenever it comes to entrepreneurialism and like business ownership, there's a lot of like give and takes. Like, again, like, automotive is not profitable, yet it gave us the ability to get a Tesla Model Y and a Cybertruck, and it be less financial burden on us personally, right? And it gives us another cool business to play. We've been in that business for like I think a year now, and again, I don't like it. I think I'm much better off sinking all our money into properties and stocks for like individual financial investment and whatnot. I still kind of, as an entrepreneur, just want to play around with the automotive thing and just see if we can get some things to work. Again, it's not worth my time. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. If I start thinking about my time and the time I put into it, and I'm just like, dude, this is so not worth it, right? But again, it's an entrepreneurial thing. It's something to test and play with and see if we can get it to work, and see if the business model itself has fundamental flaws in it, and you can't just run in and just be successful. Whereas on the property side, I feel like, at least with the way ours is strategized and our plan is, we almost can't go wrong, especially buying in like the price targets that we're buying in. So we're buying properties at like certain price targets, and we already have data to back up how, like, our performance for that particular price target. And if we go to new price targets, then I don't know if we'll still remain as profitable in those new price targets. So we're not going into those newer price targets anyway, or as of right now, until we build more of a base of our existing price target. Because one other thing I want to mention here is that, like, you can easily derail your investment and financial wealth growing by a simple mistake. When I say a simple mistake, what do I mean? I could put the Cybertruck as one of those simple mistakes. This Cybertruck costs us like $2,100 a month payment wise, plus another, I think it's like $300 a month for full coverage insurance. We're basically, I'll just say $2,500 a month for this one vehicle, right? Now, given there's some portion of that's covered by it being rented out, but some months not. Some months I don't even want to book it out because I have to travel a lot, or like this week I'm out of town. I wanted the Cybertruck, so it's not available to be booked. Dang it, I lost my train of thought. Oh, but it was the worst financial decision because I could have just took $2,500 a month and put that in the stock market, right? And $2,500 a month times 10 months, we're at $25,000 times the gains that, like, let's say for instance a Tesla would bring. I think like within a couple of years it's gonna be like over 2x. maybe even as much as 4 or 5x. I do a lot of options trading too, which has a much higher results than any other type of trading. So, I mean, that same $25,000 could be worth $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in over the course of the next 2 to 5 years. And that's being modest. I think it could do 10x actually, but I'm just like being very conservative in these numbers. I've already seen a 2x this year off of some of the stock stuff. So, yeah, you can mess up your entire investment, strategy by a couple of these things. The expedition, whenever they delisted the expedition from Turo, and then we set a $500 a month payment on that, that's $500 a month, $5,000 every 10 months, $6,000 a year that we were at a loss of, had no income for it, and we were just gonna lose $6,000 a year, and that could have been reinvested. Buying a new property and like upgrading your property could be that thing that really hits you. Like I've always lived by this philosophy, and I think if anybody applies this, it will help them generate so much more wealth. But don't spend your income, your additional new income, for 2 years. Meaning, if I got a pay raise today from a job or whatever, right? If I got a $2 pay raise today, I'm not allowed to increase my living for 2 years. I have to then take that $2 per hour, calculate that out. Let's just say it's $200, $400 a month or whatever, right? 80, 160. Yeah, let's just go like 250. Okay. So like 250, you take $250 a month, and I want you to take that 250 and put it into a stock, put it into something, put it into a stock, put it into some investment, right? I wouldn't put it in savings. I mean, you could do that. That's an option, but like there's a lot of other opportunities out there. Even a high yield savings account, especially while interest rates are high right now, it's a good way to make some passive money without doing anything. Make 5% with your money just sitting. So, but just do that for 2 years. And then also within that 2 years, you'll probably get another raise somewhere else in there. And then you'll start a clock on that new money that you made. And then you'll just keep kind of doing that all throughout life. And that will put it so that you have a nest egg to the side. That's like your investment, your retirement. Even if you already have retirement set up through like your company that you're working for or anything like that, even if you're already stock market investing, let that be an extra amount that you're stock market investing. And, that compounded over 10, 20 years, it results in like quarters of millions, $500,000, millions of dollars, depending on how much that delta is. If you went from having a $20 an hour job to a $30 an hour job overnight, and then a year or two later you're at $40 an hour somehow, and you take all that delta money and invest it in the next, and just invest it in whatever, then I mean that could be substantial. That could be substantial. That's 2 years of basically double the income, or basically double your income being just saved, and yeah. So that also gives you the leverage to be able to start businesses. Basically, I mean, that's for the most part what I did while I was working my 9-to-5 job at my other employer. I saved up a bunch of money. When I said save, well, I saved it for some period of time, and then I got into stock market investing. And then one of Tesla's first waves, what's over 5 years ago or something like that, one of Tesla's first waves, I made a decent amount of money in one of those first waves, and it really gave me the capital to quit my 9-to-5 job and to start Elite Automation. And so like that was part of the reason why I was able to start Elite Automation. However, I want to add something. I could have went and got I could have just stayed where I was at. I could have literally just stayed where I was at, kept investing in the stock market, and I'd be much wealthier today than if I would have went out and started a company. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to take the short-term sacrifices, even though we're 5 years in. Sometimes you take those short-term sacrifices because that will be the stepping stone that can take you into being a multi-millionaire, decamillionaire, centimillionaire, billionaire. Because if I kept with that strategy, billionaire is off the table. Like there's certain things, like if you follow certain strategies, like certain things are off the table. Now, I still think you could, like, yeah, I mean, you still could have been extremely wealthy. But it's like you invested most of your money, but not everybody's doing that. But you also still wouldn't become a billionaire. So, yeah, I mean, this is like 40 minutes in. Hopefully this was like a good long summary of some of the different business operation things that we do. I really hope you guys appreciated that. If you have any questions about some of the business dynamics, I'm open to explain a lot of things. And if I'm not open to explain them, then I just let you know that I'm not open to explaining them. There's some things that I want to keep them kind of private. There's some things that maybe I don't want local investors to know about. There's some things I don't even necessarily want employees to know about. Because whenever you're, especially with like elite automation, like we're managing a corporate company, there's some things I have to be careful about. Even if I go on like vacation and stuff, I have to be careful on what I post on social medias and stuff, because maybe I have an employee that's been working on site for 3 months and hasn't had a vacation. And they're going to look at me as the CEO of the company and they're going to say, that piece of shit. You know what I mean? Everybody does it. If you work for a big company and you're like, that CEO just made $20 million this year, I can't even pay my bills, right? Which I don't ever want elite automation to be that way. And so like sometimes whenever I do some things that's like, I've been doing this for like 5 years, I want to take a vacation, or I've been working for 6 months, I want to take a vacation. Now everybody sees it like you've been working for 6 months, you need a vacation. Now everybody sees that you lose sleep at night and you're going to take a vacation. They just see that, homeboy's on a vacation and I'm over here working, so you have to kind of like manage like those, not expectations, but psychological phenomenons and whatnot. And yeah, that's part of managing a corporate company and operating a corporate company. And yeah, I'm actually working on site for Elite Automation right now, which I don't do much on site work anymore. Majority of the time we have team members do majority of our installation work, and I go out and oversee things, and maybe spend a week out there, 2 weeks out there. Like when we did the Lucid project, I went out there while like all the Lucid directors were out there, and some other suppliers, CEOs and stuff were out there. So I was out there during those times to basically shake hands and kiss babies and all that good stuff, and make sure everything was going smoothly for the presentation work that we had to do. But yeah, hopefully this was informative. Hopefully it gave you kind of a rundown and insight on some of the things that we're doing. And also one thing I'd like to also add is some people say just like do this one thing, and I'm for doing this one thing, and lead automation is really my one thing. However, like doing these other things with like properties and stuff like that, it creates, it gives you an experience from different perspectives. You start to understand like, oh, this is kind of how the real estate industry works. You start to understand like the different norms and unnorms and things with the different industries. And I'll give a couple more examples before I go. Like one, automation industry is an extremely hard industry. It's extremely hard. It's like cutthroat. Your customers want to not pay you for every little thing. Like, oh, this thing doesn't have one bolt in it, I'm gonna hold $1 million. It's like, what? Like, in what industry can you get away with that? Like, really, the manufacturing industry kind of gets away with robbery, and they especially abuse automation companies like ours whenever they kind of think that they can do it. And sometimes we have to take them to court because, well, yeah, I mean, they're basically doing you wrong. They're trying to hold out. Like, we have one customer right now that owes us a little under $1 million, you know what I mean? And we've already completed the work. We completed the work over a year ago now. And they're like slowly making some $30,000 payment like every couple weeks or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, that's just something you got to deal with in that. And then like, you'll like with like the property side of things, sometimes you have individuals that are like, trying to tell you things aren't possible. I mean, you have this everywhere, but like people tell you things aren't possible, or like you know, whatever. And so you just got to brush them off, and you got to do your thing. And be like, I don't care what your normal procedure is. This is how I'm doing it, right? Like, for example, I had a realtor get mad at me because I contacted another realtor directly. I'm like, hey, dude, where are we at with this? And, you know, my realtor was like, oh, you can't be doing that, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. I tell you, I don't give a shit. I'm trying to make moves. I'm trying to make shit happen. And if you, whatever you're doing ain't moving something, I'm going to move it myself. And that, you know, that's part of my executional, you know, coming from Elite Automation, operating a corporate company. Like, things got to move, and if they're not going to move, I'll do it myself. And this is part of my nature too. Like, I get shit done, and you know, don't wait for things. But yeah, again, hopefully this is enjoyable. Any questions, comments, put them down below, and we'll catch you on the next one.